Тобто це таке перезавантаження маленьке. Гори взагалі завжди перезавантаження.
У нас пішов зворотній відлік, 50 секунд починаємо.
жовтня працює медіа-центр Україна Укрінформ.
It's October 18. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform starts its operation. My name is Svetlana Chaparenko. Today we start with a very pleasant press conference. Why pleasant? Because it's always pleasure for me to read news like a Ukrainian was the first in history too. And now I want to introduce Antonina Samoilova, the first Ukrainian climber to summit the Manaslu peak in Himalaya. It's eighth tallest mountain in the world. Before that, this record was only achieved by men, and Antonina became the first Ukrainian woman to ever do it. So it was not only a record for Antonina and for our country, but it's also a charitable mission that we are about to talk about shortly. So, Miss Antonina, it's our pleasure to have you at Media Center. Miss Antonina, please tell us how come previously only men made it to the top of this mountain? Why is it so difficult? Well, honestly, when I summited that peak and then I went back to Kathmandu, I found out that I was the first Ukrainian woman to ever do it. I knew that Ukrainians did it before, but I was the first woman to ever do it. So it's the third 8,000 peak that I climbed, that I summited. I was at Everest and K2. And I can tell you for sure that Manaslu is not an easy 8,000 peak. It's quite a difficult way from Camp 1 to Camp 2. There's a lot of vertical walls. One had even negative inclination, so there's a lot of space to work. So why did you pick Manaslu? There are many other difficult peaks. Well, last year I was in the expedition at Manaslu, but I didn't summit it because there was a threat of avalanche. It was a difficult season. We had to cancel the expedition from Camp 3. So Camp 3 is when you're almost at the very top of it. You've made most of your way and you have to come back. And we had to do it to save our lives back then. And of course, it's natural that I wanted to come back there to summit it, to settle my accounts with that mountain. And I wanted to do it without oxygen. That was my main task, to summit the 8,000 mountain without oxygen, but I was not able to make it due to the illness. So tell us about the details. How long did it take? What were the difficulties that you stumbled upon, and with whom have you been summiting the mountain? Well, I was doing it with a Nepalese company, Foot in Peaks Expedition 7,000 Trek, and the expedition was going on for about a month. Well, maybe a little bit less, 3 weeks and a half. Within that period, we've made the full rotation from Camp 1. That's the one rotation is the acclimating expedition to their higher altitudes. And the first acclimatization we've made within first month, or sorry, within the first week. And after that, I got sick and I had to use antibiotics. Then we had to go back to the base camp to take a little rest. And what happened next? I've had some rest for 3 days, and then at the altitude of 6200 I started having fever. I had a very slow pace with which you cannot get to this altitude without oxygen. I felt my hands trembling. I felt like a person having a very difficult flu. I was fighting, I was struggling for about 2 hours, and then I've taken the decision that I will have to do it with oxygen if I make it to Camp 2, Camp 3 in a condition like that. So I've taken that decision. We made it to the Camp 2 somehow. I've spent a night there. I felt a little bit relieved, but then the ascent, I was doing it with oxygen, and then we went without oxygen from Camp 2 to Camp 3 at the altitude of about 6900, and then from Camp 3 to the top I was making it with oxygen already. So why is it that the climbers said with oxygen or without oxygen? Why would you choose to climb a mountain without oxygen? Well, you know, specifically in case of Everest, since it's almost 9,000, it's a kind of record, but now I've come to a conclusion that there are no positive sides. It's just a challenge for yourself and probably to demonstrate to the world and to humanity in general that the limits of a human body, well, they are endless. And for the body, for your health, for your appearance, there are no advantages, because you know, if you climb up without oxygen, you cannot see anything around, you don't want anything. I was seeing people attempting to climb up Everest without oxygen, and those who were trying to climb up Manaslu without oxygen, like one very good friend of mine from Australia, but she has a great mission. She wants to climb up all 14 8,000 meters mountains without oxygen. And you know, I've seen people who were at the altitude like 300 to 400 meters below the top. Well, they were looking like zombies. We outraced them, and then on our way back we met them again. Well, you know, they look like people who just don't understand what they're doing. They look lost. But for me, my personal conclusion is that I don't want to make any similar attempts anymore, because first of all, I want to live. Second, I like enjoying something like you know, as you get to the very top, you have to come to your senses to look around, to see all this beauty. For example, in Everest, both times that I was climbing up, we spent 1 hour. Every time we spent 1 hour at the very top. You know, you see something, you have memories of those places. But when you do it without oxygen, it all just passes by you. You're just struggling for your life. And basically a lot of people don't even make it. A lot of people perish during ascents without oxygen. So this is the reason why you decided to make the gala dinner, to help the hospitaliers to procure the oxygen equipment. Yes, on the 24th of October, I organized a charitable gala dinner at Veranda Restaurant on Dnipro. There will be an auction, and all the proceeds from the auctions and from the tickets will be forwarded to hospitaliers, for oxygen concentrators, for the military, for the for our wounded warriors to save their lives. And I call my dinner oxygen equals life, because in the mountains you understand it. You understand that oxygen can change everything in case you stumble upon any problem. And I've seen certain symbolism in that. So I would like to raise as much funds as possible, because the more oxygen concentrators, the more saved lives of our warriors. Over there at the top, even regardless the absence of oxygen, even in this condition of struggling for your life, have you felt any pride for yourself, for Ukraine? Well, obviously, yeah, when you come away that long, when you achieve the very summit, you feel pride about your strength, that you were able to make it. You realize that an extremely difficult task is accomplished. You've taken a lot of effort, and you know, people say that the most valuable result is the one that was achieved through a lot of effort. And in case of 8,000 meters high mountain, this is when you feel it. It's very symbolic. Specifically now, you know, I'm having these thoughts that within the last 2 years I haven't seen any single Russian three-colored banner in the mountains. The Russians, they still ascend, but they ended up in such a story that they cannot carry their flag with them, you know, because it's a shame, not pride. And I'm feeling goosebumps running over my hands as I'm saying this, you know. And as a Ukrainian, I'm proud of raising my flag above the mountain. And my friends take pride in me too. They see some symbolism, you know. This flag is the symbol of strength, of fight, freedom, all the best of the best national qualities. And it's something, well, you cannot help but take pride in, and you want to repeat it again and again and again. Will this flag be presented at the auction, maybe along with other attributes that you've brought with yourself? Well, I've planned 2 lots at the auctions in coordination with my sponsor, jewelry house Sova. You know, I was taking an earring with me as I was going up the mountain. They have this rosehip series. My colleagues, other climbers, they were asking me why specifically this Gelder rose, because I was saying it's our national symbol, it's our national tree. And also there will be a picture. I was fond of drawing. Before that, I was climbing up Kilimanjaro. That was the first mountain I climbed up. And after I descended, I've drawn a picture of it. Also, I was thinking about making that flag a lot on the auction. We had a Ukrainian flag and also a flag of United 24, so I will give that flag back to them. They will have their auction, and our flag is with me in Kyiv, and probably I will bring it up to the auction too. Thank you very much, Antonina. I will give the journalists an opportunity to ask their questions, please. Good afternoon. Fakti newspaper. Can you please tell us what were the weather conditions, the winds, the temperatures as you were coming up to the very top of the mountain? Well, this year, unlike previous years, the weather was wonderful at Manaslu. You know, it was a very good weather window, you know. As the mountain climbers, we climb during the weather windows, and they last for like a couple of days within a season, 2 to 3 days for maximum. This year people were climbing for about a week uninterruptedly, almost 8 days. But since I was going through the last weather window, it was the very last day of the good weather, it was deteriorating a little bit, and at the very top we were met by a very strong wind, but it was not like 70 kilometers per hour. But based on my experience, I can tell that there were bursts at about 40 kilometers per hour. That's a very strong wind, but yeah, I mean, it felt normal, cold, but still normal, and very sunny. So basically, I can say that this year the weather was good. Well, comparing to the last year, when there was 40 centimeters of snow on a daily basis per one day, and the bigger the altitude, you know, the more the snow, you have to clean your tent every morning as you wake up. So this year it was wonderful, I could say. I think that the temperature was about minus 35 at the very top, but again, it depends on the wind. As there is a burst of wind, it falls to minus 45. As the wind comes down, maybe it raises up to minus 30, below zero. Well, as I was wearing an oxygen mask, it covers almost all of your face, like this. And I had the oxygen bottle on my neck, and I had a big hood. And as we were ascending, the strongest wind was near Camp 4. You know, it's an open plain there, and the wind was blowing very strong. You know, we ascended during the night time, the main part of it. So I've put on my sunglasses, and I almost didn't see the way. But at least I didn't feel the wind like beating my eyes. And it was blowing from my very right. You know, in Everest I suffered the most this year. And can you please tell us what was the weight of your backpack as you were coming to the very top? Well, on that last section, I think it was 7 kilograms. 5 kilograms. 5 kilograms is the oxygen bottle. The full oxygen bottle weighs 5 kilograms, and then my backpack maybe 1 kilogram, and a thermos 1 liter, so basically maybe 1 kilogram. So it's about 8 kilograms maybe in total, plus the flags, plus sun protection cream, sunscreen, and well, I didn't have a lot of things on me. Well, did you have anybody to support you psychologically or something? Well, I always wear my crucifix. It was my guard. I have a crucifix that was gifted to me by my unfortunately late mother. She presented it to me on my 25th birthday. I put it on as I climb every mountain. This time I didn't take it with me, so probably that's why I got sick. I forgot it in Kyiv, and so I was wearing the one I always wear. Do we have any more questions, please? Good morning, Vitaly Tkachuk, Ukrinform. Can you please tell us how important is the oxygen for the mountain climbers, since it's the main topic of our today's press conference? And what would you compare it with, I mean, the oxygen hunger, oxygen deprivation, as you ascend higher and higher? And how important is the adaptation even for the mountain climbers? I understand that not even for the simple people who don't know how to act there. And also, you've mentioned that you got sick with enteritis. It complicates the story with the oxygen even more, because if you have enteritis, it's difficult to make it even down here. Well, you know, oxygen is everything in the mountains. It completely decides for you whether you are freezing or not. It's something that you depend on all the time. For a mountain climber at the altitude of 6,500 meters, you feel it difficult without oxygen. For regular people, it's at the altitude of 5 meters that you start feeling real bad. But theoretically, if I get to the base camp at the altitude of 5,000 meters, so if a helicopter brings me there without oxygen, I will faint right away. It's a mountain sickness. We call it mountain sickness. And I could compare it to a very strong hangover when you cannot even stand up, when your head is aching so bad that it's about to burst. You know, it's the pressure fluctuations that influence the pressure inside of your body. And I compare it to a watermelon that is about to explode. You know, the pressure is rising, it starts building up inside of your head, so it's called haze. It's a condition that frequently results in death. Obviously, the risk of it is higher the higher is the altitude, but it can happen to anybody at any relatively high altitude. And in that case, there are two conditions, the most dangerous conditions in the mountains. First is haze, it's the brain swelling, and haze is the swelling of lungs. And the doctor told me this time that swelling lungs is a condition even more perilous than swelling brain. So in that case, a person may have only 1 day to go down to get back to a hospital. If they spend 2 days in this condition at certain altitude without any procedures, well, one can just die. In case of haze, you have a little bit more days. You may inject dexamethasone. It's a hormone that decreases the swelling, and thus you get more chances to survive. Well, basically, oxygen decides everything. So what is oxygen? It heats up your body. When you go without oxygen, the brain sends the signal to the body like, I'm saving you, but I'm not saving your hands, your fingers, your legs. So the blood keeps circulating, but the peripheral blood circulation switches off and people start getting cold sores and frostbites. So getting a frostbite with a mask is way more difficult than without a mask. So how do you solve it before you ascend? How do you heat up your limbs? Well, there are methods, there are some techniques that I've developed for myself, like something that helps me personally, and there are some universal methods that are useful for any people, for like soldiers and any other ones who are freezing in winter. You have to wave your hands or legs at high amplitude, and sometimes, you know, when you're freezing so bad that you don't feel your fingers, you have to strike them against something like, you know, a rock or a hard snow, frozen hard snow. You have to beat them against this, your fingers against this hard snow, so that the blood flows back there. And for the legs, it's when I stretch the back surface of my legs. I don't know how it happens, but the blood gets back to those muscles, and improves the circulation. And there was also a question about arthritis. How did it complicate things? Well, you know, first of all, is the inflammation. It's a fever of a type, so it did complicate my ascent. The body is weak, but since I was ascending Everest, being sick with COVID, well, it seems like you're making a collection of sick ascents. Well, first time I was climbing Everest, it was extremely easy, but second time it was extremely difficult due to COVID. Thank you very much. We have more questions.
Hi, how are you going?
Hi.
I've worked on the front lines on and off for 9 years as a medic, so I know the importance of oxygen, medical supplies, so I know what's needed. I've just been to Zaporizhzhia, and there's a distinct lack of oxygen, portable oxygen for the soldiers. When did you become aware of this issue, and who alerted you that the importance of oxygen supplies on the front line?
Thank you for the question. I have the manager who is working with me. She's from Dnipro, and she's not only my manager, but also the manager of the fund, Dobrodi. And that's how actually I got known from her, from this girl from Dnipro. Her name is Ludmila, and she told me that actually they have the need of these oxygen concentrators on the front line because they work with hospitaliers and as a fund. So that's how I knew. By the way, my dad now, he's in the front line and he's in Zaporizhzhia region actually. Sorry?
I might have seen him because I do a lot of work on front lines. So
Really, yeah. And I don't think you saw him because he just went there after rotation 2 days ago. So they sent him there, yeah, after rotation. Yeah, so hopefully everything will be fine, and we'll raise as much funds as we can to buy as many concentrators as we can.
Дякую. Антоніна, ви ж розумієте, що тепер до вас як
Antonina, you understand that now the requirements to you from the society will be higher because you are a mountain climber who ascended Everest twice. So what's on for you? What's next? Well, I definitely want to climb another 8,000 meters peak. Probably Lukhodze is the closest mountain to Everest, so they have the same way to the Camp 3, and it's considered to be a super or a mega 8,000, so it's more than 8,500 meters tall. So I would like to climb it, and from the top of Lukhodze to watch Everest from there, because I was looking in the opposite direction twice. It's very beautiful, it's real classy, but from my friends who were climbing up Lukhodze, they said that on the night as you're ascending Lukhodze, you see the chain of lights, the people who are ascending the very top of Everest. This is something that I would like to see. Well, I wish all your plans come true, and I wish you to gather the most funds possible during your gala dinner to save the lives of our warriors. Thank you very much. We will continue at 1400. We will talk to Natalia Homonyuk, the head of the United Coordinating Press Center of the Defense Forces of the South of Ukraine. Thank you for staying tuned.